practical training for athletes and motion data. Now, a major oversight from my own experience in playing sports, right? Athleticism, athletic training, the pros, college level, kid level, you name it, as well as my current experience as guiding people online, is that there's a major oversight in the practicality and reality of what you need to do in your training and the actual game that you're playing. So, for example, if you're in boxing, right, and you're working your stuff, in training all the time on pads, it's pretty much like perfect. It's fair weather. You're hitting it the same place all the time. Awesome. But then when you're actually fighting, the person's not going to be there, right? Their head is going to move. Okay? They're trying not to get hit. So if I'm fundamentally training my basics most of the time, always fair weather, there's no wonder why there's a major gap in performance ability when it comes to going into sparring and then the actual fight. Okay? So again, motion data is this. If it's a jab, I'm throwing my jab and I got it down here and I got it up here and I got it down here and over here. I'm training and preparing myself in a spread so that I can adapt my technique to the reality of the situation. Okay, he moves, so do I. Oh, they're taller, they're up there. Now their head is over there, right? Motion data is this. It's training equations. The bar is always moving. You're always moving with it so that you don't need to change your technique. You could just adapt it so it's useful for you because that's realistic. Okay? Now, looking at football, for example, most of the stuff is done drills. They're perfect. They're fair weather. 99 probably percent of all sport and all games doesn't go according to perfect training scenarios. Yet most of the time in practice and training is devoted to doing it perfect every time. Even though you're going to get the picture perfect textbook rep 1% of the time, why would you train most of your time? Why would you put most of your effort into something that happens the least amount of the time? The thing that happens the most amount of the time is that you need to take your technique and move it, right? So when it comes to form tackling in football, well, there's always a bunch of objectives and a bunch of different things happening at all times in sport. One facet has to do with the athlete, the individual. Now that individual now also is being looked at in a team setting, right? So they're teammates. Another factor is the objective. The objective is, do you need to go and get that person? Do you need to catch the ball and run in that direction to try and get points? Is it first down and 10? Is it second down and 3, right? How much space do you have on the field to the sideline? Do you need points? Is it a game-winning situation, right? These are all objectives that influence your movement because you're going to run differently if it's at the end of the game and you need to pick up that first down versus if it's early and it doesn't matter that much, you might move different. Additionally, there's the rules of the game that will influence your motion. There's points that influence it. And there's opponents. So that means whatever perfect thing you've imagined in your head to do, the person is obviously not trying to let you do that. And they're going to move so that 9 times out of 10, if you're going to try and line them up to tackle them, they're going to be trying to avoid you. And they also have blockers to protect them. And again, there's objectives. You have teammates that could be in your way, right? There's so many different facets and factors that are always going on. So that fair weather training, to me, seems like a massive oversight. They still do it in the pros, right? So then there's what could sport be and athleticism be if you trained practically? So that if I'm trying to have strong knees and a good juke, well, someone could be pushing on me, right? I could be tired and I might have less or different energy in the third quarter. So that the way that I trained it, perfect fair weather, okay, let me stop. I did that perfect rep, all right, it's good. Perfect rep on the ladder might be a little bit different. Stabilizers might be a little compromised. And again, maybe someone's pushing on you. Maybe there's like things like effort, duress, fatigue influencing that foot plan. So this is why with motion data, right, we use vectors and things like this to prepare yourself for that as best as you possibly can, because that's realistic. You're not going to get to do it perfect all the time. So spending all that time in training, it's just it's a factor of like, that's most of what people do, so then everyone thinks that's what you're supposed to do. It's kind of like if the whole world trained karate, it would all make sense. But then if someone came along with Muay Thai and showed them like gaps in their stuff, they'd be like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know, because this is just the way that everyone does it and still does it. But like, there's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of stuff that like, the game could be more exciting if people have more ability to do things like what Barry Sanders did, right? Anyone that people really looked up to, they did stuff like this. They were very good at improvisation. Michael Jordan, the same thing, right? How many layups or baskets in the NBA look like the layup warm-up drill? Right? Like the one time in a game when someone gets a breakaway and is completely left alone and they could do that or do a dunk. That's basically the amount of times that it's perfect. Every other time it is contested. So then you got to take that base technique and adapt it, and adapt it, and adapt it, and adapt it, and adapt it. It's the same thing with every technique, especially with sport, because again, the bar is always moving. So if I could do it one way, good. If I could do it another way, even better. If I could do it varied, the more ways I could do it, the more tools I have in the toolbox to be able to adapt the technique to the reality of the situation, to the reality of the sport, to the reality of the task. So that's what motion data is for. Is there's the base thing. So I'll teach you a little base bit right now on motion data. So we have a reach spread. What does that do? It's like tenderizing the dough, tenderizing the meat, heating the metal, moving around so that what? Range finding. You're creating a spread so that in line, in a track, you've been there before, right? That's why it's part of the warm up, and that's why I do it so often. Get in the zone now. Okay, so that's what the reach spread is for. All right, basic. You've been there before. It's like the GPS. You're traveling the map in as many ways as you possibly can, so that what? When it comes time to do it, you can make the most effective and efficient move, because you know the escape routes and detours, but then you also can make your best and most educated prompt because you've been there before. So that means when you have to adapt a technique, because you're playing around and you've done it with the reach spread that makes it become instinctive and ingrained, filming right now, buddy. Yes. So then, applying that filter to all the different moves and techniques of sport, if you got eyes, you could see how that can benefit. Because then you have a million other things you could do, and you can adapt the techniques, again, to the reality of the task at hand. So that there's less wear and tear, less injury, and it's really great for the mind. It's like when you're really prepared for a test, a lot of times it goes easier because you're like, I got this answer, I got that answer, I got this tool in the toolbox. And for the things that I don't know, I can come up with something. I can come up with a solution based on all the different things that I've done and I've been there before. I have an answer. I have more options available, increased performance, less stress, less injuries, better time. Also, when it comes to injuries, most of the time, injuries happen because what? It's part of the game, right? You're playing against people that are trying to do stuff. You're moving, right? It's intense. You're tired. You're this, you're that. It happens. But the ones that often can be avoided are injuries due to not being prepared enough, not being resilient enough, not being adaptable enough. It's kind of like mentally, if someone has a very specific way of doing things, the second it doesn't work, they get stressed, right? Which then opens them up to, right, injury, getting beat at something, whatever. But when you have that availability to adapt, be more resilient, right, more creative, injury a lot of times is that you haven't been there. And then you're doing it in a high stress situation, right? Like martial arts, people are literally trying to take you out of your good positions. Same thing in football, same thing in basketball, same thing in any sport, is that they're trying to take you out of what you do well so they could beat you. So then to focus all your efforts on only like fair weather, only ABCs, well, how's that going to help? You got to learn the rest of the alphabet too. So with the injuries in these different positions, if you've been there before, then you have more detours, more routes, more things you can do so that those positions that you're not prepared for don't take you out of the game as often. So this is like the next level, right? Again, of the basics of motion data and the science and the math as to why is so that if I've been there before, it becomes available to me as an option, and it doesn't need to like damage me as it being a weak link and or oversight. So this is why I do what I do. If anyone has seen my stuff with the ball on the wall, right? Anytime I'm doing the techniques, I'm rarely ever just doing the A and B technique. Because why? Well, the whole reason you're supposed to learn an alphabet so that you can craft words. And then from those words, you can craft sentences. And then from those sentences, you can make stories. So what that means is the basics are always designed for you to use, but they're training wheels. You evolve past it, and then it's for use to help you in your sport, athleticism, regular training. That's what it could be. I don't want to say supposed to be because most people don't do it that way. But hopefully you got something from this. There's so many places that can be explored from this topic, but this is like a nice basic one for you guys to understand some of the mindset as to what we're doing here, what we believe and how we operate, and why motion data is a thing that we employ. It's not random. It's based on practical training and reality, math, science, and life. It's just realistic. And again, most people, most places, pros, college, you name it, this is an oversight. They do not prepare for these things. So get prepared. Pass the test. Come and play around. Equilibrium. Motion data.